Hey everybody, Dave Whitmarsh here, ready for another podcast and conversation. Um, this time, I must admit, Michael and I have only had a quick chat over the phone. So Michael is the CEO, president, co-founder of Six Conversations, and um, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. So, welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much. I'm good to be here.
Yeah. So so tell us a bit about yourself, um, and yeah, more personally, whatever you want to share, and then the follow-up question will be, tell us about your company. So,
Okay, it's been kind of a long and winding road because I actually was born in northwestern Ontario and went to university in Thunder Bay. And I was headed for clinical psychology. And I'd always wanted to come to Toronto. And my wife brought home a job uh, posting and said, you got to try for this. So I did. And lo and behold, they flew me down to Toronto, put me up in a hotel, and I got hired. And I was working in downtown Toronto. It's just boom. It all happened so quickly. And
yes. So for those who aren't familiar with the size of Canada and the size of Ontario, which is a province equivalent to a state, it's what from Thunder Bay to Toronto would be what, about 22 hours to drive?
about that, I've done it a couple of times, and it's an overnight in Sudbury of all places. And yeah,
Mhm.
it takes a while.
Yeah,
Uh,
so we
but it's
can get
15.
to the border of Florida in about the same time, or actually quicker than we can to get to Thunder Bay. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
and the follow-up question or the follow-up comment is, yes, it's cold
Oh,
up
yes. Yeah.
there.
But everybody loves winter. As soon as the skidoos were invented, that was it.
Mhm.
People went nuts with that stuff. But it was always a dream of mine to get out of there and come to Toronto. And I was able to do that. I was so glad. And I moved around to a number of different employers um, over the years and moved from clinical psychology right into HR and moved around in there a lot and
And
picked up
and
some.
so
Sorry, go ahead.
so how long did you practice I guess in the corporate world in HR before you decided to start your own business?
Oh gosh, that would have been from somewhere in the late 70s, no, probably early 80s until about maybe a dozen years ago.
Hmm. And
So it was quite
so,
a while.
yeah, I'd say, right. And so the premise of your philosophy and your company is what? Six conversations.
Well, it's six conversations, all right, but it's to um, to really have employees feel as though they really belong in a company. They can freely participate in a company and give their all to the company because that is so rare to see. And it's even rarer to see managers who know how to do that. And I never experienced that really. Um, and I read about it and kind of wanted it, but it just never quite happened for me. There were some better and some worse, but it seemed to me managers were always missing the boat, and most of the times they never gave it a thought. They
Mhm.
just wanted what they wanted, and they wanted it now, and they wanted it their way. And we were of little consequence. Our way of thinking, our way of working didn't matter. It wasn't taken into account. And I thought, this isn't right. And I read the literature on it, and this was there seemed to be a better way. And yet, when I read all those better ways, yeah, they might work for some people, but they just really didn't hit the nail on the head for me. So um, one day I sort of sat down and just it all came out. And there it was, the six conversations. I go, wow, this is amazing. It was all pent up and it just popped out. And I had to revise it a bit over the years and take different looks at it. But basically, it is now the way it was written that one time all those years ago. And I'm firmly convinced that that will work.
Mm-hmm. And so, did you work with individuals or teams or companies? Like how, like give us an idea how you might engage a firm or your process.
Um, Probably make contact with the very top people in the organization because they're the ones that are concerned about the bottom line, and that would be my initial appeal to them. I can help you, your organization to perform a whole lot better, but I would work with the team of managers, and I would
Mhm,
train them on how to manage their employees. They might be able to manage the company and they might be able to manage the money and all those sorts of things. But in managing the people is, I think, where they fall down a lot. And that's
mhm,
what I would teach them to do. And there are 6 steps they need to have, 6 parts of this process. And it's in a kind of a conversational format that they would have with their employees on 6 distinct topics.
cool. And so you get feedback from or sorry, you get buy-in from the CEO who hooks up with the managers, and then
Mhm.
you share, that philosophy. Do you find that like if you have a group of 20 managers, uh, um, you like to me, if you're just trying to really simplify it, you could just say to these 20 managers, well, it's not that difficult. Here's 6 questions, right? So really, but you need to change the mindset and the approach for all these different managers to change the communication style, change the way that they look at things, change you know, and change just the vision so that they can see the end goal, right? That must be the hardest part is working with some of these folks just to change their patterns and their habits from decades past, right?
It is, and it's not going to happen with everybody, but it's kind of in how you approach it as well. Because one of the things that I want to look at with any company is how do they measure their performance? And yeah, money is one way, and that's the kind of final one, but there are other indications as well. You take a look and you see, particularly if they're a unionized shop, you say, well, what are your labor relations like? How many grievances have you had? How many arbitrations have you gone to? And I've been to far too many myself. And I remember signing those checks for, $10, $15,000 just to make this go away. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not that management was entirely wrong. We maybe didn't handle it all that well, but it just wasn't going to go away because that's not the union's job, right? So so how many of those have you had to sign? How much time are you wasting in these meetings? And they're never short meetings. It's
Hmm.
2, 3 hours at a time. So how much time are you spending that? How much slippage is there in the whole system when you do that? And then look at that. How does that reflect on you with all the rest of the employees you have? You're hard to get along with as a manager. Oh, nobody wants to work for that guy. That sort of thing. So
Hmm.
there are a number of ways you can appeal to this. And in the final analysis, you say, well, you can keep doing what you're doing, and how is that working for you? Or
Hmm.
you can try something different. And I don't want to say maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work. I'm convinced it'll work for you. And that's got to be better than what you're doing now. And give that a try. And for the cost of one grievance, you can pay me and don't never have to do it again.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, but yeah,
It,
that's
it,
it's not for everybody.
so I would imagine over the decades that you've done this, then you've you've had influence on thousands of managers then, like
No, I wouldn't say that. I haven't done it that often because I'm finding it a difficult sell and marketing is not my strength. So I haven't had an opportunity to do it all that many times, um, which is, kind of a real pain source for me.
Yeah, well, um, it's funny because I was coming home or having a conversation with somebody in the space, and they just said, it's you know it, the way you're describing this, it's really just it's not that easy, right? And the truth is, I was talking about marketing in a sense because um, I take a very I'm a very mathematical numbers type of a person, and if you look at the whole marketing space, um, it involves graphics and details and things, and that's not my strength at all, right? And
Mhm.
so, but I have a knowledge of it, and so when I was saying, you need to do this, you need to do that. She said, well, it's not that easy. And it's like, it is. You just have to realize that at some point, um, art and math come together, and it's not a natural connection for both. Right? So
Mhm.
I can feel your pain there. And um, so in a dream world, then you'd be having hundreds of thousands of people through this, and so what other things do you do at your business? How else do you help companies?
That's generally the way I do it now. I've done other things, but that's generally what I'm trying to do right now.
Hmm.
I did labor relations. I was kind of a consultant for labor relations issues throughout Canada, as a matter of fact. So trying to keep, 10 um, different pieces of legislation together when it concerns, the how you treat employees and stuff is a little bit tricky. But I always wanted to do this kind of work. That's where my heart really is, because I think
Hmm.
this is what can really move the needle for a lot of companies. There's no need
Hmm.
to have that many grievances or sort of people saying, "Oh God, it's Monday. I got to go back to the sweatshop or the salt mines and things like this." Your employees shouldn't be having that kind of attitude. It should be a place where they really are eager to go to because it's where they can do their best, that they express themselves and do a lot of good. And you should want them to be there as a manager.
Hmm.
But it
Yeah.
doesn't happen that often.
No. And so, it's interesting because you've mentioned, and not knowing your background, at all, you mentioned grievances a few times. So do you find that this works best for frontline workers, or like, is there a place in an organization um, where your six questions and your methodology seems to work better?
Well, in smaller companies, it's going to hit the worker and influence the worker a lot more quickly. The other way, I have to work down into the various tiers of management because if you're a director, you've got managers reporting to you, and if you're a manager, you might have supervisors reporting to you. So everybody has to be on the same page. So I need to work with each group of managers, each level of management, and then most of all, it's going to hit the actual workers themselves because
Hmm.
that's where the rubber touches the road.
Hmm. Now, have you ever talked to any other coaches or consultants about um, using your strategy or teaching them your strategy?
No, I haven't thought about doing that. Um, I suppose it might be a bit of a control issue because they then go and use it and they reap all the benefits, and I've just had the one shot at them. So I kind of wanted to work with the managers themselves because at one point I did a lot of participatory strategic planning with organizations, And that's where I got the participatory part of my process, because all of a sudden when it, you ask them the questions and ask them to participate in doing some planning and making this whole thing work, suddenly, their eyes light up, they're sitting up straight, the energy is there, and you just can't hold them back. It's just, there's that nice buzz and hum, and they're off to the races.
Mhm.
And I used to do it in about, oh gosh, there were what, 4 or 5 meetings before the whole thing was wrapped up. And it was just amazing. Suddenly everything was clear. They knew where they were going, why they existed, what things looked like, and it just, the level of enthusiasm was unbelievable. And then that's why I got where I got this part for my own um, process, because I
Yeah,
was using
yeah,
the ICA process.
yeah. That's interesting. That's and so where do you well, I guess you've been running for so long. We're not to ask where the evolution of this is going, is it it's you just got to get more people involved, right? There's no technology, there's no anything that you can make it faster, quicker, anything like that, right?
No, you can't really. You can just do it better as a facilitator. But at some point, you have to face the managers and say, look, this is going to take a couple of hours with each meeting that we have. And you just have to put that in, because the benefits you're going to reap are incredible. And they don't realize it at that point. It's just, oh gosh, I got to do this. Um, but hopefully I can help them to understand the benefits they're going to get from this, because the pain they're feeling is severe enough that, okay, it's uncle time,
Hmm.
we got to do something. And we've tried other things, they haven't worked all that well. Maybe we'll try you.
Hmm. Is it and this is a joke, by the way, um, Michael, is it true that Patrick Lancioni copied your format when he came out with the five, um, I always pronounce it wrong, with the five, why am I drawing such a blank on this, the five characteristics of a dysfunctional team? Um, he didn't copy your format at all, did
No, I don't think so.
he? No.
Otherwise, I'd be rich. I could sue him.
Well, that's interesting. So, um, forgive me for saying this. It seems like you have such a talent. I'd really like to, um, I'd really like to see if take a deeper look, right, and figure out if there's a train the trainer model, right. I almost get I almost, getting the feeling that, the legacy of your work, isn't set up to be transferred and shared with others. So there has to be a way that we could figure it out, and perhaps other folks would be interested in learning and some form of royalties back to you and sharing that out. I could
That's
see.
that's really, really interesting. Because when I was looking at who I would contact in companies, there were kind of two ways. One was some of the senior managers, because they're most interested in the bottom line, and the other was HR. And then I thought, well, HR, I've been in HR, and I really, forgive me, HR, but you're really very powerless a lot of times. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
You just can't say this needs to be done and it will get done. You've got to go hat in hand to the people who can do that. But you're right. If I could train these people and they could act as the internal consultant, then they could do this in their own organizations. That's brilliant. Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
that's
thank you.
Yeah, so let's I've actually done that for a few other folks, so we can talk about that at another time. But I it's almost like, and we're both actually in Ontario, and we've had a horrible, um, uh, well, we've had a horrible 100 years with the Indigenous folks, but in light of last 6 months, it's sort of been amplified with the in the news and whatnot, as far as the residential school system, and there's a part of me that um, you know draws the natural comparison to them losing their culture, you know, and that message not being shared and passed down properly, as to, when you decide you've had enough, Michael, then, where's this body of work going to lie, right? I think there's an opportunity to keep it alive, and I'd certainly like to figure out if we could make that work for you on our end. So
I'd love to work on that. That'd be great. Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks for
yeah.
the
So
suggestion.
yeah. Okay. So is there anything else you'd like to add? And so you work, I'm assuming, you are in Canada, but that doesn't
Yeah,
stop
I'm
you
in
from
Toronto.
having conversations around the world, or any particular place.
Well, I had some partners at one time, but um, we had some philosophical differences in how this was to be done. So I said, fine, I believe in my process, so I'm not going to dilute it down. So we had to
Mhm.
have a parting of the ways. I've talked to a number of marketers, but the funny thing about marketing is you have to pay and hope that you get results. It's not as though you get results and say, okay, I'll pay for results.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah,
always been a tough one as well.
absolutely. Yeah.
But
No,
if
but
we,
I was thinking more for your customer base, though. You can do this virtually now, and just
yeah,
have these conversations via Zoom. So there's no reason why anybody can't, connect with you from any part of the world. And
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Makes it very, very simple. And
yeah,
because
and
a lot of people are working anyway via via Zoom,
yeah.
so it's not a thing that's so weird and wonderful. But yeah, this could be um, not easily done, but it certainly can be done via Zoom, and it doesn't disrupt the organization nearly as much as it would normally.
Mhm. Yeah, wonderful. Okay. Um, yeah, so we'll have all the contact information for Michael in the description of wherever you're seeing this. So feel free to reach out and have a conversation, pick his brain and talk to him. As you can tell, he's about as friendly as it gets, and would love to help out wherever he can and have a conversation, and pick his pick that wealth of knowledge, and see if you guys can work together. So this is great. Thank you for your time, Michael. And
And well, thank you very much for inviting me.
yeah,
This has
and we'll be
been
in
really
touch,
good.
and we'll float the idea a bunch around some other coaches, and see if it's something that they're missing in their weaponry. So,
Yeah,
but
that'd be great.
yeah,
That'd
okay.
be great.
And of course, if anybody is interested in seeing how that could be done, they could reach out to Michael or myself, and we'll have a conversation about that. But
Yes, indeed.
um, hope you have a great weekend, and appreciate your time.
I sure will now. And thank you very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
All right, take care. Bye
All
now.
right. Take care, dude.